What's going on there, guys? Good evening. This is the Earthmaster here on this beautiful Thursday night, October 6th, 2022. It's about 7:40 p.m. California time. Going to do an update video tonight on earthquake activity and solar weather events happening around the region. Latest quake shows a 2.0 up there in Alaska, seeing a little swarming and some variable depths of earthquakes up there along the, kind of looks like just outside of the Anchorage area up there into the Gulf of Alaska. Kind of watching that area potentially for some further movement. Let's go ahead and check out the latest activity here from the USGS over the flat scale model here. That is the latest map there of the 2.5 and above. There's some of that movement ramping up there into the Alaska region. Let me double check, make sure we got the most recent activity, which we do. Over around the Canada region, we're getting in on some activity. It looks like a little cluster of some swarming out there around the Haines Junction area. I believe that's the location in Canada. Some very shallow earthquake activity happening up there. Largest one, a 3.9 so far in the mountains. Very mountainous area up there. Of course, you got the North American plate up here to the north, Pacific plate here, and this is the plate boundary. Very large area and a major subduction zone, no doubt, for this area. So take a look at this map, folks. What do you guys see out there? Well, to be honest, there's not a whole lot of anything. If you really look at it, we haven't seen any large-scale earthquake activity anywhere across the world. A couple areas that do stand out to me is along the South Atlantic Ocean and the fracture zone out here around that region in the southern mid-Atlantic ridge. We've seen a 5.1, and of course over the last week or so, seen a little swarm of activity along the South Sandwich Trench. That area is kind of standing out to me as far as earthquake activity goes. But we haven't seen any major movement, folks, at all in the past 24 hours. 5.3 in Japan. Looks like that kicking up earlier this afternoon time frame. Let's go ahead and drop it down here to the all magnitudes for the states. See what we got brewing out here. Looks like, wow, out here around the Washington area. 2.2 near, what is that, Touchette? Touche? No, okay, I'll pass on that. In Washington, about 13 kilometers deep for a 2.2 near the Kennewick area, it looks like. Just outside of the Oregon border area. Not for certain which fault system that is occurring on out there, but kind of an unusual quake. Some movement outside of Mountain Hood and Mount Shasta as well. Looking down into California, there's not a whole lot, folks. Things very sporadic and very minimal at best. That activity down here around the Salton Sea area. Looks like the last earthquake was from earlier this morning time frame. We haven't seen any further earthquake activity along this area of the state. Things very minimal, to say the least, there in California right now. Yellowstone National Park looks about the same as the previous earthquake update. Let's go ahead and check out the Yellowstone overview. See what we got for earthquake activity there at Yellowstone. Couple earthquakes here over the last few hours or so. No major increase in movement or the magnitudes there at Yellowstone National Park. In fact, things look about the same as they did this morning. Some sporadic earthquake activity there at Yellowstone, and mostly confined around the northwestern corner of the Yellowstone National Park area, and also around the northwestern corner of the Yellowstone caldera. No unusual magma movement, nothing really to report out there other than some microquake activity there at Yellowstone National Park. Pecos, Texas, a little bit of activity outside of Pecos today, but yeah, it looks like we had some earlier this afternoon time frame. A couple twos kicking in there south of the Texas-New Mexico border. Out here south of Enid, North of Kingfisher, still seeing a little swarm of activity, including a 3.4 that kicked up earlier this afternoon time frame. The last 7 days of activity shows a pretty good cluster of quakes. How's 34 earthquakes sound in the beautiful state of Oklahoma? That's a lot. North of Kingfisher here, about 10 miles or so south of Dover. What do we have out there? Let's take a look. Of course, this is the area that looks like there's a river flowing through here. But if you notice, let me back this out here a little bit. If you look at these county roads, well, I think they're farm roads. These are not farmhouses, unfortunately. There's a lot of older fracking operations and injection wells out there, oil fields, so to speak. And it's well within the range of some older, kind of looks like some older pumping operations out there. A couple fields out there, it looks like. And that's a lot. That's a lot of earthquake activity kicking up here over the last week or so within the Dover, Oklahoma area. Latest quake shows a 1.7, and these are all situated here around a very close oil pumping operation out there. And that's not fear-mongering. It's not false info at all. We've covered this quite a bit in the past, and there's a relation to the pumping operations out there, the oil fields. Sometimes it takes a couple years to notice the effects of drilling down below and removing oil and then ejecting wastewater below. It causes earthquakes, and there's been quite a few studies on this. And if you don't believe it, go check it out for yourself. We cover this quite a bit. Not going to go into specific details here tonight, but man, this earthquake swarm around the Oklahoma area, well close to the oil pumping operations out there in the absolute beautiful state of Oklahoma. I love Oklahoma, no doubt. That is up there on my list of possible relocation areas. But number one right now is the Kansas area. So just a little heads up. I love Kansas. I'm not even joking. I love it. Absolutely love it. All right, let's see what we got here for the rest of the movement here along the eastern portion of the country. It looks pretty quiet. Not a whole lot going on there. Puerto Rico, this is the all magnitudes map, and that is pretty wimpy. Not a whole lot. 10 earthquakes there across the southern portion of Puerto Rico. No major swarms or unusual activity there around the Caribbean plate. South America region looking absolutely quiet as well. And as you can see here, folks, on the map, things are just very minimal right now. Could be the calm before the storm, but we'll definitely keep an eye on it. Mauna Loa, seen a little bit of activity within the last hour, including a 2.0. Very shallow earthquake up there at the summit. This area has seen quite a bit of movement over the last 7 days. We can actually go back the last 30 days or so. And within the Mauna Loa area, we got 418 earthquakes here at this volcano on the Big Island. That's a lot. But earthquake swarms come and go. The largest magnitude looks to be a 3.5. Now, a little advice here. If we were looking at a potential eruption or an impending eruption or activity leading up to an eruption, we would be looking at probably a lot more larger magnitudes than a 3.5. There was only a little handful, it looks like, over the last 30 days, but we would definitely be seeing a little bit larger activity and a swarm of movement, so to speak, at deeper levels around the Mauna Loa area. And right now this is just all kind of all typical here at the Mauna Loa area on the Big Island. They do see swarms, a lot of earthquake swarms on occasion, but I don't see anything yet that would risk saying that this thing is gearing up for an eruption. Right now we're just kind of watching some earthquake activity. Let me bring up the HANS notification system here from the HVO site. here we go. We got the Mauna Loa daily update. Daily update. This should be the weekly update. I don't know when the last time the daily update was came out. Not for sure if they're confused or not, but normally they put out weekly updates, so it's a little odd there. Might want to check your what's the word for it? Interns, possibly, because I believe that's a mistake there on their part. They only put out weekly updates here at Mauna Loa, unless it's an inactive stage, and right now we're really not in that stage. Mauna Loa is not erupting, and there's no signs of an imminent eruption at this time. Monitoring data show no significant changes in the past. So what I'm looking for is the earthquake activity that we've been seeing. Earthquake rates are elevated. There we go, indicating Mauna Loa is currently experiencing heightened unrest. The GPS system measurements show continued surface deformation related to inflation of a magma chamber beneath the summit. So there we go. A lot of activity kind of kicking up below the surface. Looks like GPS monitoring systems showed continued steady rates of deformation consistent with inflation of the Volcano summit region. Tilt meters at the summit show no significant changes over the last 24 hours. But I highly think here, folks, that before we see an eruption, we're going to see some larger magnitudes. But Mauna Loa has definitely been kicking up in the past few months, and that definitely could be a sign of something about ready to pick up. But before it blows, before it starts to erupt, I think we'll see some further larger earthquake activity and a little bit more swarming. But man, it's definitely active. Let's see. Tremor map tonight. Oh, did I catch it? 10-6. It looks like, wow, they actually put out the tremor map tonight a little bit earlier than the past, I'd say 3 or 4 nights. Seems like they've been getting these tremor counts out around 11 o'clock or midnight each time over the last couple days, but things are looking pretty active, and these guys are on time tonight. So 510 epicenters of tremor, again confined to about the center portion of the Cascadia Subduction Zone. Let's check out the last 30 days here, folks. See what we got. So we're going to go, since about September, we're going to go September 5th through about October 6th time frame. So notice over the last week or so of October, we've seen a pretty heightened earthquake, or at least tremor movement kicking up here along the Cascadia. A total tally here, and this is absolutely incredible for only a month time span, and it's consistent in one area along the Cascadia Subduction Zone. We're looking at 7,102 epicenters of tremor along the Cascadia Subduction Zone, and that is that's a pretty big deal. In these two separate areas, most of the time we do see some movement up north and south. Possibly this is playing catch up, not French fry catch up, but we're trying to catch up, I guess, far as the amount of tremor that's being produced here. Got to remember, we got the subduction zone here off the coast of the Pacific Northwest. That is the Juan de Fuca plate being shoved underneath the North American plate very slowly. It's been 322 years since the last major rupture that produced a 9.0, and pretty much was not good back in that day, and it will not be good once it happens again. But man, this is a lot of tremor confined to one section here of the Cascadia, and it's worth watching pretty closely. It's a lot. Far as specific earthquake activity goes here, there's been a few. I want to bring up the last 30 days of movement here within the Cascadia, and I'm watching these areas offshore because this is where the locked area consists. It's upstream from the tremor. The tremor consists about 45 kilometers down dip. And this plate extends further down below the Cascades, where it interacts with the mantle. It gets melted, and of course you get the volcanoes in the subduction zone. This is very typical of a subduction zone, land being, or at least a plate being subducted, entering into the mantle, melting, and creating pockets of magma and whatnot as you head further east on this map, so to speak. But the tremor occurs about 45 kilometers deep, and upstream here is what I'm watching kind of closely. We did see a couple earthquakes here along the Cascadia Subduction Zone further upstream, about 23 kilometers. We had a 2.0, a couple other ones, including a 1.9, very close to the Cascadia Megathrust area, very close to the subduction zone itself, 5.4 kilometers for 1.9, and a swarm of earthquake activity down on the southern segment of it. And also up here in Oregon, just off the coast of Oregon, seen a couple other earthquakes. So all this earthquake activity, we got to remember the tremor is adding further strain up onto the locked area of the Cascadia. What it's going to take to trigger the big one, I don't know. I don't think anyone knows. All I know is it's something to watch pretty closely. 322 years. What do we got for intervals? I think between 200 and 500 years is the regular intervals for a Cascadia Megathrust earthquake. And that's for a full rupture. That does not include a partial rupture along the southern segment, which could easily be an 8.7. And I've always said in the past, I think we may see that prior to a full rupture. So it's just a matter of time, folks. We're early in our life, so to speak. Geology, plate tectonics happens over a long time. So you got to count into effect here the amount of time that's taken place here since the last full rupture, which is 322 years, and figure out the intervals there. It's kind of within that time frame of a pretty good possibility of that this thing could pop. There's a lot of GPS systems up here showing uplift of the land, and I just think we need to monitor and keep note of everything that's happening out here as far as tremor goes. That's a lot. 7,000 tremors within the last 30 days. That's quite a bit. Pretty good uptick. Far as the all data goes here, it's been these little intervals of about, what are they? About 8 months, 10 months, somewhere around there. It seems like we see a pretty good uptick in tremor about every 10 months or so. Notice these lines, these spiky lines are indicating uptick in tremor, and they occur pretty on regular intervals, but I've noticed here over the last year or so that we've been looking at more closely intervals, and within those little spikes there, we're seeing larger tremor take place compared to years past. And that could be a little sign of something building up here along the Cascadia. Notice that these little levels here, little spikes, there's a lot of tremor in between the main spikes compared to years past. And over the last year, it looks like things have really ramped up. Since about 2021 or so, tremor is getting very, very active and more common. So, I don't have that crystal ball. I don't think anyone does when it comes to deciding if this thing is going to pop or not. But 322 years of built-up pressure, a lot of tremor going on. I think our possibility of a larger earthquake consists, or at least the possibility of it happening, the percentage-wise, is higher when we're seeing this larger amount of tremor activity take place here within this area. So just be on guard. A lot going on, folks. Solar weather activity. We're watching this baby pop into view. 3112. It's a major sunspot. But man, is it quiet. It's a quiet, gentle giant, so to speak. There is some polarity mixes here beneath the magnetic fields, but it's hard to say when this thing is going to spark, so to speak. There is a 25% chance of an X flare occurring, 50% chance of an M flare, 99 or 95% chance of a C flare. And it's a massive sunspot, but I hope this thing just doesn't decide to kind of float on by, waving its hand, but not providing us with any entertainment here on planet Earth. I mean, it's got potential, but it is a quiet, massive sunspot. No major flares. In fact, no major C flares at all either across the board. Looking at the X-ray class here, very minimal C flare activity. Current solar data here. Let's go ahead and check out the solar weather conditions. Density is kind of pretty neutral. Not a whole lot of speed kicking up either. Things pretty calm. KP index looks like they are kicking up there around the 3 to 4 range, as expected here, as forecasted, I should say, on this time frame. But I think after tonight, things will probably mellow down pretty significantly, unless something major happens from this solar flare, solar sunspot activity, which I'm kind of hoping. It still harbors a bit of gamma delta class, according to the solar ham site. And we'll just kind of wait on it, see if it wants to produce anything. If not, maybe better luck next time. We'll definitely see how this plays out. All right, guys, have a good night. Stay safe out there. We will chat to you guys a little bit later. Just kind of waiting on my brisket to be done. Pop that thing on at about it's about 9:30 this morning. So we're coming up on, what do we got here? About 10.5 hours or so that it's been smoking underneath some black walnut bark. Some excellent material. If you like the rich flavor of a smoked brisket, I absolutely love it. It comes out good every time. And I'm going to go out there and check on it, see how it's doing. And just hopefully it comes out good. Brisket's kind of an iffy thing. Kind of have to wrap it towards the end to keep the moisture locked in and create that heat buildup, so to speak. So I'm hoping it comes out good this time. All right, folks, have a good night. Stay safe out there again. Watch the Cascadia. That's a lot of tremor. Definitely a lot of tremor kicking up there along the Pacific Northwest. So we'll catch you guys very soon. Peace out.